Tusen tack, as we say in Norwegian.
Eller tack så mycket, as we say in Swedish. We appreciate you all coming to our workshop today.
So I was really inspired by yesterday. When I went to bed, I felt inspired. When I woke up today, I still felt inspired, and you can never guess what happened to me. That's right. So thank you, Gavin, for making my morning much better, being able to see past that empty toilet roll. Before we start, just turn your attention to the little menu in the top right corner of Zoom. There you can adjust your settings, and we recommend speaker view if you want to see the presenter, unless you rather prefer to see the rest of the delegates. We'll lift off by telling you a story. So it's based on true events from our university. This is Frank. Frank is working with individual adaptation of daily student life for students who have various needs. So he's actually very good at it, and he regularly receives good feedback from colleagues and students. Frank is also preoccupied with continuous improvement, and I participated in several improvement projects within individual adaptation the later years. This story is the story of Lucas, an Erasmus Plus student from Spain seeking to come to UiT, the Arctic University of Norway, to study. As he uses a wheelchair, he contacts Frank long before his stay to arrange the necessary adaptations to daily student life at UiT. And together, Frank and Lucas plan how to make student life easy. Lucas assumes that the adaptations made also covers exams, but to his surprise, Frank tells Lucas to contact Section for Academic Affairs to sort out any need for individual adaptation to examinations. So after searching the UiT websites and then some Googling, Lucas found his way to Elisabeth, who is the contact for individual adaptation of exams. Elisabeth is well known for being efficient and for being very welcoming in how she communicates with the students. She is skilled in her job and has full overview of what can be done and not when adapting exams to individual needs. She's really the queen of regulations. In addition, her team have recently designed a new lean process for dealing with student requests. So after only a few emails back and forth, Lucas was reassured that his exams would be arranged in a way that was practical for him. As Lucas now knows that he can come to UiT to study for a whole year, he started to wonder about other stuff like accommodation. As a wheelchair user, he knows that not all apartments are suitable. So he contacted Frank again, because Frank is helpful and he also the contact person for adaptation of daily student life. This time, Frank emailed back straight away, explaining that he doesn't have anything to do with student housing, and he advised Lucas to contact the student welfare organization. A new afternoon was spent on UiT's web pages. He found very few references to the student welfare organization. So he turned to the best friend Google and found out, to his surprise, that this student welfare organization is not a part of UiT. It's an independent organization outside the university. On their website, he quickly found someone to contact. As it turned out, the student welfare organization could not offer Lucas student housing suitable for wheelchair users, as they only had older buildings in operation in Alta, the campus where Lucas' study program was offered. He was, however, explained how he could apply for student housing adapted for him on Dramsveien. We sure hope Lucas knows that Dramsveien is in Tromsø, and that is a 6-hour drive from Alta, where he was going to study. Now, for the sake of accuracy, names and pictures of people in this story have been altered. It's a fresh example from our organization, and I have also painted it with a wide brush. But Lucas' story serves as an example of how we manage to give good help individually at some levels, but still in a manner that doesn't really suit the needs of the customer. For Lucas, using wheelchair, that is his normal life. And he should expect that individual adaptation for him as a student is one service, that the different solutions are interconnected. Instead, he faces a university which, in this case, ties job tasks and processes to the way we are organized. Of course, Lucas has no idea, nor should he, that it's relevant that Frank works in a department at level 3 in our organization, while Elisabeth, the Queen of Regulations, works at level 1. Paying close attention to our organization as we do, we tend to lock ourselves into these silos with little interaction in between, and that can result in experiences like the one Lucas got, being sent from person to person. We make it the customer's problem to move between silos rather than us designing the services around the customer. If we move from this concrete story to a more kind of generic map, it can look something like this. On the one hand, we have our organization, and we often map that out in nice, elaborate organizational maps, and we have displayed them on our website. We are used to working in these units, and we care about the task that the unit is in charge of, paying attention to the unit leader who makes priorities with resources and people and stuff. Each of these bullets can represent a task with a specific, which a specific unit is responsible for. So there will be thousands of such tasks to be carried out. The way we are organized, we typically tend to make sure that we, the unit, deliver on these specific tasks. On the other hand, we have the customer whom we perform the task for, the one we define value for in Lean. The core of our service design project is to help the organization, and the people in it make a mental switch from the horizontal to the vertical perspective. And by doing so, making sure that we deliver the best service and user experience we can. We have asked those of you who registered for this session to prepare in advance. As part of that preparation, you were asked to watch a 3-minute video, reflect upon this model, and answer one question. This model could be seen as a model for our service design approach. It has led us to think differently when it comes to Lean at UIT. We have generally focused our Lean and continuous improvement work on job tasks and processes. As we gradually have come to a new understanding regarding where service and user experience fits in this frame, it has changed our overall perspective. For instance, if you pay close attention to the service we deliver, which drives user experience, we will need to really have a perspective on who the customer is. Let's use this conference as an example. Who's the customer of the conference? We discussed who's the customer yesterday in the conference in many sessions. So at this conference, it could be Karin and I, the presenters. We expect great service from the conference in order to deliver this session. Or should we rather look at you, the participants, as the customers? In that case, Karin and I should cooperate with the conference in order to give you the best service and user experience. Sometimes we have found that if we think of who we send the bill to, who pays, we can find traces of the customer. For many of us, that would mean it would point directly to our employer when it comes to this conference. Maybe that is the customer. In that case, the conference, we the presenters, and you the participants need to work together to give our employer something of a user experience. That way, we're talking about sticky learning, for instance, like Ruth Archer taught us about yesterday. So just some food for thought. The service is both what we do and how we do it. It's our footprint, our DNA. The question we asked you to answer before the session was where, according to this model, the focus on Lean has been in your organization. So here's how it looks from your perspective. Even though the data is not massive, there's an inclination towards tasks and/or processes, with close to 60% indicated efforts are focused here. So now we are going to give you a first chance to reflect and share. There will be 2 sets of group activity in this session. The first one is to give you a chance to meet your session team and to make the next group session more effective. Your task is divided into 2, I recommend taking a screenshot if you suspect you'll forget them. And please be aware that you will be given only a total of 6 minutes in this session, group session. So this is what you do. Present yourself briefly and then tell the others a couple of sentences of where the focus of CI lies in your organization, according to the model. Those of you who have prepared in advance will have a small advantage at this point. Be aware that this will be your team also for the next group session. So this means that you should try to listen actively. For instance, write down where the others are from. And please do have some fun. For those of you who are not familiar with Zoom, when Karin opens the breakout rooms, you will get prompted to enter the room. Click that button. We will keep track of the time, and when we get close to the end, you will get a countdown timer. You don't need to take any action, as you will be automatically transferred back to this main room. So see you back here in 6 minutes.
Welcome back. Now that you have met your session team, and before you meet again, we would like to present 3 live experiments that we have facilitated on behalf of our university director, and which constitutes the main frame of our service design project. Our first live experiment is about our services, and the services that the administration offers, not the services that the whole university offers. The question we had to ask ourselves was, how many services do the administration offer today? We had never thought about this before, and no one knew the answer. Then we had to ask all faculties and departments, which are the services you offer? We asked them to send us the name of the service, and to make it easier for them, we accepted the answers in any kind of format. They could just send what they had. The response was massive. We received 3,307 services, or it was more a combination of services, processes, and job tasks. For all of these 3,307 services, processes, and tasks, we created a service card, a first description of the service. And as you see, those cards not only filled a table, but also my office. Involvement is a fundamental approach in our service design project. In addition to the support from the top management, we wanted a bottom-up engagement. We invited 30 of our colleagues from different departments across the university to a workshop. And this was actually the day before the COVID lockdown, and we were still able to arrange a physical workshop. As you see, we had used the service cards as wallpaper, at least as many cards as we could fit on the walls, and that was about 1/3 of all the cards, with the remaining in the tables in front. We had prepared the room with the cards in advance, and it was so fun to watch our colleagues arriving. They just entered the room, looking at the walls and then staring at all these cards, completely overwhelmed. In a little over 5 hours, we sorted all 3,307 cards into 106 services. After the workshop, while working from our home offices, the task force continued working with the services, and we developed the first service map in March 2020. During the spring semester of 2020, the service map was developed continuously. We involved our faculties, the task force, smaller groups of employees in several digital workshops, adding and deleting services from the service map. Working with the service map, we used different digital tools. We used Padlet, working with the service map and cards, and you will try Padlet later in this workshop. We also used a shared PowerPoint for capturing reflections and discussions in group sessions where each group worked on separate slides. We have also used Miro for ideation and brainstorming sessions, and of course both Zoom and Teams as the meeting arenas. When developing the service map, we first worked with the employees in the administration, and in July 2020, we had a version of the service map that was good enough to present to our customers, the students and academic staff.
This brings us to our second live experiment. UiT has several campuses spread over huge distances in northern Norway, as you had heard from the Lucas story. In fact, from Mo i Rana in the south to Kirkenes in the northeast, it's 1,200 kilometers or a 15-hour drive, and then you have to travel through both Sweden and Finland. Our second experiment was to put our prototype service map to the test, to get the user perspective on it. In a small pocket of time where we again were allowed to do physical workshops with distancing and floor markings and sanitizers, we designed a grand campus workshop tour. We made dozens of roll-ups portraying all our materials, the service map, the concept overview, and stations for each group of customers. With this load, we drove, we flew, we walked, and we pushed trolleys to get around. We sent out open invitations to staff and students. We held 11 workshops in numerous locations on 4 campuses, had close to 300 visitors. So we explained the concept and asked if this is a wise way to move forward. We asked if these were the right services. What's missing? What do we need to get rid of? What do we need to change? Is it understandable? And will this be useful for you? All the feedback went straight back into the next iteration of our service map, finally presenting our version 1.0.
So almost a year ago, we had developed a service map with 6 groups of customers, and where each bullet represents a service. Still knowing the map contained several errors, but it was good enough, and we knew we could go no further without digging into details in each service. It is also at this time we realized that our lean and CI work finds its home. When designing services around the customer, it made us change our perspective. It now seemed natural that our lean work belonged in and between the services. This map was also presented for leaders around the university, and they raised the question, how will this work in real life? What does this mean for us and our employees? So we needed to learn more. Our university director decided that 5 out of the remaining 83 services should be run as pilots, where we could learn how to build virtual service teams across departments. The size of each pilot team varied from 65 to 11 participants, and altogether 130 employees were involved in the 5 service pilots. Each department also assigned 1 employee to become a service coordinator. The coordinators formed a coordinator team responsible for the progress in the pilot. The pilot started in March this year. In advance, all participants were invited to watch some videos explaining the concept of the service design project. And when using flipped classroom, or principles from flipped classroom, the success depends on whether the participants do their preparations or not, just like for this workshop. Most of you who signed up for this workshop in advance have watched the movie that we sent to you, and some haven't. The working method in each pilot has been digital workshops with group sessions where the employees have discussed the service. The first task for the service teams was to listen to the customers and their user experience. We invited a few customers to the service team meeting. And in addition, the service team was encouraged to interview customers and share their experience with other team members. When listening to the customers, we asked the service team to pay special attention to the customer's perception of the service. What is the service? Where does it start? Where does it end? And do we understand this in the same way as the customer? Looking at the service from the customer's view has been helpful, giving an overview of the service content and also what service excellence looks like in the service. The next step was to involve the service team creating an action plan with a few continuous improvement initiatives. They also discussed how they can learn from each other, how they can share best practice and information. It's all about how they can work and collaborate in the daily working life in the virtual team across departments.
So this was a second presentation burst. We are going to move on to the second and last group discussion. And you're going to meet your session team again. In this part, we're going to use Padlet to help you catch some of your reflections, discussions, and world-class ideas that you will create. The Padlet will look like this, and it consists of 2 parts only. The first 3 columns, they are all the same. Choose whichever you want. Here you see the 2 questions to work on top. We'll get back to them a little bit later. Click the plus sign, and you will get a virtual sticky note to write in. This is your individual note from the session. So start by writing your name and your university organization in the subject field. The rest of the sticky note is meant for you to write down your ideas and reflections on those 2 questions. Now, remember to click publish so that the others can see your note. If you then need to write more, you can edit it, and there's a small menu in the top corner of your sticky note. Please also pay attention to the 4th column. Here, we ask you to pop in any question that comes to mind regarding our presentation, the project, well, really anything. The questions or the challenges for this task is meant to help you transfer inspiration to what action might look like. And also, please to remember again to have some fun in these groups. Karin is going to share the link for the Padlet in the chat shortly. Enter the Padlet and start writing on your sticky note. We will give you 2 minutes individually to write and think before we open the breakout rooms and send you into the group discussions. So the link is there. Enter Padlet, 2 minutes to write and think from now. All the breakout rooms are empty, as I can see. I hope you had good inspirational discussions. There are loads of both ideas and questions on the Padlet, and just going to let you know that you can all also comment on the other notes and still, of course, ask questions here. So there's a couple of things I just would like to highlight. There's tons of stuff that we also have experienced when we started here, and just Bernadette from DCU has said the resistance from all levels of management, particularly middle management, to the loss of control of the functional boundaries. Now, this is also a hard nut here, because this is what we are trying to go into exploring in our next live experiment number 4 that I'll come back to. But how do we lead services? How do we change that perspective to lead services rather than units or parts of the organization? I'll come back to that as well. And a couple of good questions that we probably don't have time to go into, but how did we get the support to initiate this work from the start? So that's a long story from organizational change, where we discovered that when we change the organization and move around these on our organizational map, these boxes, it doesn't do anything on the way we do our work. And there was a realization that we need to change drastically in our approach if you're going to be able to do that. And there was a coincidence onto that. We'll write more on that note and say something about that. So we are going to reinforce a couple of our messages from today. And I think that one of the most important one is that we have, when it comes to lean also, we have rediscovered the customer as the #1 driver for our development. And it's interesting because we've been saying that we have used lean for 11 years, and define value for the customer is the first lean principle. So how could we have not put the customer up there from the start? But it hasn't been something that we have been doing from the whole perspective of the organization, but in pockets. This has been very important for us. So when we do lean work now, we see it from the top through service process and then job tasks. Also, very interestingly, and something that addresses some of the questions you have, is that as we have been working with it, there has been a growing expectation, and now it's quite clear that we should continue to use lean also service design, live experiments, and design thinking when we work. And this has been somewhat of controversy. But now there's a clear expectation among those who have participated in the pilots that we should do this even though we think this is difficult. So that gives us also a momentum. Let's move away from the 99% plans that we make in the university. If we can plan for 99% of every outcome, then we can start a project. Now we started out, do experiments, tests, measure. Let's see where that takes us next. And also, the very point for us, that was the inspiration for this presentation, Lean has found its home. And it's not for me and Karin to see, it's for the whole organization to see, aha, now we understand this Lean thing. It fits in within the services. And now for the fourth upcoming live experiment that says something about buy-in and top management. We have, a couple of months ago, have a new top management, a new rector team. The new rector is very occupied by thinking of leading in a matrix. We need to use the resources across departments, and this is his main message. So that helps. So what we're going to do now is figure out what does it mean to lead service. And we started this month to develop a framework for service leadership. And we realized through the 5 pilots we had that we need to address the leaders, and the issue of that Bernadette lifts up here is how do we get these people to change perspective, that we lead something that is a service and some of the resources lies in another unit that we need to use. How do we do that? So this has been some of our main probably learning points. It's been a story we've been telling. We'll go into these notes of yours and make some comments and answer your questions there. So please keep the link for the Padlet. Please also, during the rest of the conference, grab a hold of us, me and Karin, seek us up, send us a note, anything if you have questions and you want to know more about, for instance, how do we get the support from this from the start? What's the story there? How do we measure benefits in this? And all the other questions that are here. So that really concludes our presentation and this workshop for today.